The census workers visited my house today. I filled out the form. I said, there are 4 people that live here. Me, my wife, my 2 children. There are 4 people. That's all I wrote on the census. 4. There's been a lot of hoopla about this, and I decided to make the plunge. In spite of all the threats that they level at you, I was thinking, the Constitution is our governing document. I'm going to live by the Constitution. I'm going to recognize it as the highest authority in our land, and if the federal government will not hold itself to the constraints of the Constitution, I will hold it to the constraints of the Constitution. As such, is in my power to do so. Granted, it's fairly limited in a personal day-to-day life. I don't wield enormous amounts of power or capital or anything. You got my little account here on YouTube that very few people watch. My wife and I had that discussion. She was looking at all the... You are required by law to provide the information requested. These federal laws are found in the United States Code, Title 13, Sections 9, 141, 193, 214, 221, Title 44, Section 21. On and on. You face fines, jail times. You must. She's like, maybe we should just fill it out and not make any waves. And I said, you know what? We do that constantly in this country. Americans, for some reason, don't treat this like this is their country anymore. Like the Constitution isn't their document. Like the federal government doesn't work for them. Well, you know what? Constitution says you shall enumerate. That means count. It also can mean, listed, as in enumerated powers, as in this is what you're allowed to do, and anything beyond this you're not allowed to do. So, yeah, enumerate means count. So, the federal government is going to threaten me with jail time if I don't answer all their little questions. It's time for us to hold the federal government to that standard, which gives it its power. Federal government doesn't have any power except what is given to it by the Constitution. The federal government is a constitutional construct. So if they're going to ignore the Constitution, I would say, why don't we just ignore the part of the Constitution that gives you your power then, huh? What's the difference? There is none. If you're not going to respect the Constitution when you're sitting in a constitutional post, how valid is that constitutional post? Huh? Or rather, I'd say the constitutional post is still quite valid, but the person that's sitting in it, that doesn't respect the Constitution, hey, don't expect to wield the Constitution's power. Wow. All this off the census. So yeah, like I said, I filled out the form, the census form. Said, how many people live at your address? I said 4. Wrote it down, sent it in. 4 people lived here. It's true. So they came to my house today. Lady knocked on the door just a few minutes ago, actually. Lady knocked on my door, said, hi, I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau, flashed her badge. Just, they handed me this little sheet thing here, said this is, your rights, talking about your answers being confidential, and this or that. I said, 4. She said, what? I said, there are 4 people that live here. She said, okay. She wrote it down. And she said, could I get your name, please? I said, no. I wasn't aggressive. I just said, no. She said, there was this awkward silence, and I read the sheet. She's like, it's just, so I can identify you to, identify you for informational purposes, to know who answered. And as it so happened, when she said that, I was looking at this. It says, Your answers are confidential and protected by law. All U.S. Census Bureau employees have taken an oath and are subject to a jail term, a fine, or both if they disclose any information that could identify you or your household. Now, when they say disclose, who is it they are disclosing it to? Because if they go and tell the government who sent them my name, they've disclosed the information. So I thought about saying, hey, I'm looking out for you. It says you get in trouble if I tell you tell you my name, and write it down. And you write it down. But I didn't. I just said, no, I'm sorry. Can't provide that information. She said, well, just any name. You could tell me you're Buddha, and I have to write it down. I said, but I'm not Buddha. I'm Asian. She said, no, don't write that down. She said, no, I'm not going to. Stood there, and there's this awkward pause. She said, you can tell me your cat's name. I said, which one? There are two. She's like, one could be the first name and one could be the second name. I said, look, the Constitution says enumerate. That means count. That's all the information that I'm going to be able to provide you. There's 4 people in this house. She was, you know, she took it. She was in good humor. She took it well, so it was great. That's fine. So there you have it. I answered the call of the census today, and I suppose we'll see how that pans out. I mean, will I get in trouble for this? Are they gonna slap me with jail terms, or fines, or anything like that? I mean, they said they will. You are required by law to provide the information. You know what? You are required by law not to ask these sorts of things because you are not given the power to do so by the Constitution. Well, the Constitution said we can count you. And I've given you the count. It's kind of long and rambling, but really tired. I drove a lot, and now I'm at home. And it's hot in here. And I put on my hat to make this video. So it's very warm. I'm sweating right now. Can you tell? Sweating. It's because of the heat, not because of the Constitution. I'm hoping that Constitution stands between me and the federal government. I mean, theoretically, the federal government exists to support that Constitution and its relationship to me, but when I see things like fines and jail time if you don't answer this question we're not allowed to ask, it gets kind of hairy. Not like this kind of hairy, but it's kind of hairy. So hey, have a nice day. Miss U.S. Census worker, I bear you no ill will. And here's the hair. Hairiness. Really tired. I apologize for this. I hope I made a few good points that you can latch onto and share with all of your friends across the nation so we can stand united and not fall individually. But have a nice evening. Godspeed. God bless you all. Like everyone. I hope. Everyone. Rusty. The cat's name is Rusty.